3 days before my daughter's wedding, she asked me not to attend the rehearsal dinner. She said her future in-laws felt unsafe around me because I asked too many questions. I had already paid nearly $30,000 toward the wedding. I had spent 6 weekends building the wooden arch she planned to stand beneath. That night, the wedding coordinator accidentally emailed me the final seating chart. My name had been removed from the family table. The groom's parents, who supposedly lived overseas and could not attend, had been given the 2 seats beside my daughter. But that was not the worst attachment in the email. The last page was titled Thomas Bennett Transition Plan. And according to my own daughter, I was supposed to be living in a retirement community by Christmas. I remember the exact moment my phone buzzed. It was 8:17 on a cold Wednesday evening in November. I was standing in my garage in Worthington, Ohio, sanding the final edge of the wooden wedding arch I had built for my daughter, Madison. Everyone called her Maddie except me. To me, she had always been Madison Elizabeth Bennett, the little girl who used to sit on my workbench wearing pink safety glasses while I repaired broken lawn chairs and kitchen drawers. The garage smelled of cedar dust motor oil and the cinnamon candle burning inside the house. An old country station played quietly from the radio beside my toolbox. The announcer was talking about the possibility of freezing rain that weekend. I had just stepped back to inspect the arch when my phone vibrated against the workbench. Madison's name appeared on the screen. I smiled automatically. 3 days before your only daughter's wedding, every message feels important. Maybe she needed me to pick up the programs. Maybe the florist had changed the delivery time again. Maybe she simply wanted to tell me she loved the arch. Instead, I read, Dad, I need you to skip the rehearsal dinner Friday. Camden's parents are uncomfortable after everything that's happened. Please don't make this harder than it already is. For several seconds, I thought there had to be another message coming. An explanation. A joke. Anything. The 3 dots appeared at the bottom of the screen, disappeared, and returned. Then another message arrived. You can still come to the ceremony, just please stay calm and don't ask questions about his family. This weekend needs to be about me. I read both messages again. Then I looked at the half-finished arch in front of me. Madison had sent me photographs of what she wanted: natural cedar, soft white fabric, small ledges for lanterns, and enough space for climbing roses. The rental company had quoted her $2,800. I told her I could make something better. For 6 weekends, I measured, cut, sanded, and rebuilt sections until every joint fit perfectly. Now I was being told not to attend the dinner where the 2 families were supposed to meet. The strange part was that I had never met Camden's parents. According to Madison Victor and Marlene Shaw, divided their time between London and Vancouver because of Victor's consulting work. Whenever I suggested a video call, something came up. Victor was traveling. Marlene had a migraine. The time difference was difficult. Their connection was unstable. After a while, Madison stopped giving excuses and simply said they were private people. I wiped the sawdust from my fingers and typed, "What exactly have I done to make them uncomfortable?" The reply came almost immediately. "You know what you've done." I honestly did not. I had questioned why Camden knew the estimated value of my house. I had asked why he kept talking about converting my woodworking room into a nursery. I had refused to sign a document Madison brought me 6 weeks earlier because she could not clearly explain what it was. And at Thanksgiving, the previous year, I had objected when Camden joked that I would love community living once I stopped being stubborn. Apparently, those things now counted as threatening behavior. I called Madison. She declined the call. A moment later, she texted, "I can't do this tonight." I stared at those words until the screen went dark. My wife Diane had died 9 years earlier. After her death, I promised myself Madison would never feel as though she had lost both parents. I had attended every college event, even when I did not understand what I was attending. I had helped her move into 4 different apartments. I had replaced the transmission in her first car, paid off the last portion of her student loan, and covered 3 months of rent after she lost her marketing job during the pandemic. When she became engaged, I contributed $25,000 to the wedding. Then the venue added service charges. The florist required another deposit. Madison wanted a professional videographer because, as she explained, you only get one wedding. By that Wednesday evening, I had spent a little over $29,000. I did not regret the money. I regretted realizing that every sacrifice I had made had slowly become something Madison considered normal, something she was owed. There was a photograph of Diane on the garage shelf. She was standing beside our old station wagon, laughing as the wind blew her hair across her face. I picked it up. "What would you do?" I asked. Diane had always been better at understanding Madison. She could tell the difference between our daughter being angry, frightened, or manipulated before Madison said a single word. I saw only the anger, and beneath it something that frightened me more. Distance. I set the photograph down and typed one final message. I will respect your request, but I won't pretend I understand it. Madison did not answer. I turned off the radio. Without the music, the garage felt enormous. I looked at the arch again. For the first time, I wondered whether I would actually see my daughter standing beneath it. Camden Shaw entered our lives 14 months earlier. Madison met him at a charity auction organized by the boutique hotel group where she worked as a marketing coordinator. He was 34, well-dressed, and confident in the effortless way some people become when they have never had to question whether they belong in a room. Camden managed renovations for a company that converted historic buildings into luxury apartments. He knew about wine architecture, European travel, and the names of restaurants where a salad cost more than my weekly grocery bill. The first time Madison brought him to my house, I wanted to dislike him. That is probably true of most fathers meeting the man who may marry their only daughter. But Camden was prepared for me. He arrived carrying a bottle of bourbon from a small Kentucky distillery. He complimented my workshop. He asked intelligent questions about my 37 years maintaining vehicles for the Columbus Fire Department. He even remembered Diane's name after Madison mentioned her once. During dinner, he listened more than he spoke. When Madison went to the kitchen, he leaned toward me and said, "I know she's your whole world. I'll never ask her to choose between us." At the time, I thought it was respectful. Later, I would remember the exact wording. He had not said he would never make her choose. He had said he would never ask her to. There is a difference. The first warning came at Thanksgiving. Camden arrived early and immediately began walking through my house as though he were inspecting it. The home was nothing extravagant. A 4-bedroom brick colonial built in the late 1980s with a maple tree out front and a deck Diane and I had rebuilt together. We bought it when Madison was 5. It held almost every important memory of our family. The kitchen doorway still had pencil marks showing Madison's height from kindergarten through high school. Diane's flower beds ran along the back fence. The upstairs hallway had a faint blue stain from the time Madison spilled an entire bottle of fabric dye while making a costume. Camden looked around and said, "You're sitting on a lot of unused space." I laughed. "I live here. I use it. You know what I mean. 4 bedrooms for one person. I occasionally sleep in all of them." He smiled as though I had made a charming old man joke. Later, while carving the turkey, I heard him telling Madison that my primary bedroom would make a perfect nursery suite. He said it casually, almost playfully. Madison laughed. I did not. "Planning renovations already?" I asked. Camden looked at me across the dining room, just appreciating the potential. "The potential belongs to me." The room became quiet. Madison immediately frowned. "Dad, he was joking." "I know," I answered. Camden raised both hands. No offense intended, but he watched me carefully for the rest of dinner. That evening, he arranged a video call with his mother. At least I was told it was his mother. The screen showed only part of a woman's face because she claimed the camera on her tablet was broken. Her voice sounded familiar, though I could not place it. She asked Madison about the wedding venues they had toured. Then Camden turned the camera toward me. "This is Tom." The woman gave a small laugh. "I've heard so much about you." I leaned closer. "I'm afraid I haven't heard much about you." The screen froze. A few seconds later, the call disconnected. Camden looked down at his phone. International Wi-Fi. "Where is she?" "Vancouver this week." Madison quickly changed the subject. A month later, they became engaged. The proposal photographs appeared online before Madison called me. Camden had rented the rooftop of a downtown hotel and surrounded her with candles, white roses, and a photographer hidden behind a glass partition. Madison looked beautiful. Happy. So happy that I forced myself to ignore the small ache of learning about the engagement from Instagram. When she finally called, she was breathless with excitement. "Dad, I'm getting married." I saw. There was a short pause. "You did?" "The photographs are hard to miss." She apologized, but only briefly. The next morning, she came to my house carrying a 3-ring wedding binder. That binder became the center of our lives for the next 11 months. Venue options, color palettes, catering menus, guest lists, seating plans, bridesmaid dresses, cake flavors. I attended appointments when Camden was busy. I tasted 7 nearly identical versions of vanilla cake. I drove to Cincinnati because Madison found a photographer whose pictures looked more intimate. I tried to enjoy it. Most days I did. But every time I asked when I would meet Camden's parents, the atmosphere changed. They're complicated, Madison would say. Or they don't like formal family expectations. Once she said Camden doesn't want them judged. I asked who was judging them. She looked at me as though the answer were obvious. You can be intense, Dad. I was a retired fleet mechanic with a bad shoulder and 3 pairs of identical work boots. No one had ever called me intense before Camden entered our lives. Still, I backed away. I told myself Madison was an adult. I told myself every family had private history. I told myself that loving my daughter meant respecting the parts of her life she did not share with me. What I did not understand was that they were not asking for privacy. They were teaching me to accept secrecy. At 10:42 that Wednesday night, my laptop chimed. I was in the kitchen heating canned soup because I had lost my appetite for the pot roast I had prepared. An email from the wedding coordinator appeared. The subject line read, "Final master file, please review before printing." I assumed she had sent it to the entire wedding party. The message began, "Madison, attached are the updates you requested. I removed Thomas from Friday dinner and adjusted Saturday placement. Please confirm the family transition notes should remain internal." I stopped reading. Then I opened the attachment. The first page showed the ceremony schedule. The second listed the wedding party. The third contained the seating chart. I found Madison and Camden at the center table. Beside Madison sat Marlene and Victor Shaw. Not absent, not overseas, not represented by empty chairs. Present. 2 seats away, my sister-in-law, Beth, had been placed beside a college friend she barely knew. My own name appeared at table 12 near the kitchen doors with several guests marked vendor partners. I leaned closer to the screen. Originally, I had been sitting beside my daughter. I knew because Madison and I had spent an entire afternoon arranging the first draft together. Now I had been moved so far from the family table that I would have been looking at the backs of their chairs. A note beside my name read, "Keep away from Shaw parents. Inform staff if he becomes emotional." My hands went cold. I scrolled farther. The last page was not a seating chart. It was a list titled, "Post-Wedding Family Transition." Beneath it were several bullet points. December tour Harbor Grove with Tom. January begins sorting garage and basement. February, prepare Worthington property for market consultation. Use positive language, community, convenience, fresh start. Camden recommends presenting move as Tom's decision. Madison to manage emotional resistance. I read those words repeatedly. They had discussed moving me out of my house. Not someday. Not if my health declined. They had created a schedule. The house where I had raised Madison. The garage where I was building her wedding arch. The kitchen where Diane had spent her last Thanksgiving. Apparently, my future had become another wedding planning task. Near the bottom was one final sentence. Home proceeds may provide down payment flexibility for M&C. M&C, Madison and Camden. I closed the laptop. Then I opened it again because part of me believed the words might disappear. They did not. I printed every page. The printer sounded painfully loud in the quiet kitchen. Page after page slid onto the tray. I spread them across the table. A family seating chart. A plan for my home. Instructions for managing me. I felt angry, but underneath anger was a deeper pain. Madison had not merely lied about Camden's parents. She had participated in conversations about removing me from my own life. I picked up my phone. My finger hovered over her name. I wanted to call and demand an explanation. I wanted to ask how long she had been planning this. I wanted to remind her of every payment, every midnight phone call, and every time I had placed her needs ahead of mine. But I did not call. For 37 years, I had worked around fire engines. When something failed inside a vehicle, the worst thing you could do was start pulling pieces apart without understanding the problem. First, you shut down the engine. Then you looked for the source. So I sat at the kitchen table and forced myself to breathe. The email had been recalled 12 minutes after it arrived. A second message followed. "Mr. Bennett, the previous email was sent to you in error. Please delete all attachments. We apologize for any confusion." I replied with 3 words. "Thank you, received." I did not say I would delete anything. Around midnight, I walked into the living room and sat beneath the photograph of Diane hanging over the fireplace. She was 48 in that picture, 2 years before she died. Her hair was tied back and she was holding a paint roller after we repainted the room. I remembered her standing on the ladder, ordering me not to touch the walls until they dried. I remembered the way Madison had cried at the funeral. I remembered promising Diane during her final night in the hospital that I would protect our daughter. For years, I thought protection meant paying the bills Madison could not pay. Fixing the problems she did not know how to fix. saying yes whenever life frightened her. Now I wondered whether all those yeses had taught her that I would accept anything. I don't know who she is anymore, I whispered. The house did not answer, but for the first time I allowed myself to consider a possibility I had spent months avoiding. Maybe Madison was not simply being manipulated. Maybe she was helping them. I slept for less than 3 hours. At 6:15 the next morning, I made coffee and carried the printed pages to the garage. The wedding arch stood under the fluorescent lights. I ran my hand over the smooth cedar. Madison had chosen the design because she said it felt warm and honest. I almost laughed. My phone rang at 7:03. It was the wedding coordinator, a young woman named Kayla. Her voice shook. "Mr. Bennett, I'm so sorry about that email. Mistakes happen. The notes weren't intended to be shared." I understood that. Madison is very upset. I imagine she is. Kayla paused. She asked whether you opened the attachment. What did you tell her? That our system shows it was downloaded. Then she already knows. Another pause. I really am sorry. You didn't write those plans, Kayla. Number. You just sent them. Yes. Then you don't owe me an apology. After we hung up, I searched Harbor Grove. It was an upscale retirement community 20 minutes north of my home. The website showed smiling silver-haired couples playing cards, painting landscapes, and walking beside an artificial pond. The least expensive apartment cost more per month than my pension provided. I called and asked whether anyone had requested information under my name. The receptionist hesitated. Then she said someone named Madison Shaw had scheduled a tour for the second week of December. Not Madison Bennett, Madison Shaw. She was already using Camden's name. "I'm Thomas Bennett," I said. The woman became uncomfortable. "I'm afraid I can't discuss another person's inquiry. It was an inquiry about me." "I understand, sir." "Did my daughter tell you I wanted to move?" A long silence followed. "She said you were having difficulty maintaining your home." I looked through the garage window at the driveway I had shoveled alone the previous winter. "She said you were becoming socially isolated." I thought about the Thursday breakfast group I attended at a diner near the fire station. She also mentioned concerns about memory. That one nearly made me drop the phone. "My memory? I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett. I shouldn't have said anything." "No. You've said exactly what I needed to hear." Madison had been building a story about me. A lonely widower, aging, forgetful, unable to manage his home. It was clever because none of it sounded cruel on its own. I was a widower. I was aging. I occasionally forgot why I had walked into a room. What 63-year-old did not, but when those ordinary truths were placed together in the right order, they created a version of me who needed to be managed. At 9:30, I drove to Madison's apartment. I did not call ahead. I had a box of wedding lanterns she had asked me to repair, giving me a reasonable excuse if anyone questioned why I was there. Her car was not in the parking lot. Camden's black Range Rover was gone as well. I had a spare key because Madison had once asked me to water her plants while she traveled. I stood outside the door for nearly a minute. Entering felt wrong. Leaving felt worse. I unlocked the door. The apartment looked staged for social media. Cream-colored furniture. Gold-framed mirrors. White pillows no one was allowed to lean against. A large engagement photograph hung over the sofa. Camden was looking at Madison. Madison was looking at the camera. On the dining table sat stacks of place cards, ribbons, and gift bags for the bridesmaids. I placed the lanterns beside them. Then I saw a folder on the kitchen counter. Harbor Grove, Bennett Transition. My name was printed across the front. I did not open drawers. I did not search the apartment. I opened the folder bearing my name. Inside were floor plans, pricing sheets, and a checklist titled, "Preparing a Resistant Parent for a Transition." Several sentences had been highlighted. Do not frame the move as a loss of independence. Involve the parent in small choices while maintaining control of the larger decision. Remove sentimental obstacles gradually. Written in Madison's handwriting beside the final sentence were the words, "Mom's things." My knees weakened, not because of age, because my daughter had discussed removing Diane's belongings from our home as an obstacle. I heard the apartment door opening. Madison stepped inside carrying 2 coffee cups. She froze when she saw me. "Dad." Camden entered behind her. His expression changed when he noticed the folder in my hand. Madison set down the coffee. "What are you doing here?" "You asked me to repair the lanterns. That doesn't give you permission to go through my things." "My name is on this." Camden closed the door quietly. Tom put the folder down. I looked at him. "This is my life. It's information. It's a schedule." Madison's face hardened. "You weren't supposed to see it yet." That answer hurt more than denial would have. "So it's real." She folded her arms. "We were trying to help. By telling strangers I have memory problems. Her expression flickered. I never said you had dementia. That's a very specific sentence, Madison. Camden stepped between us slightly. No one is trying to hurt you. Then why are you planning to sell my house? It's too much house for one person, he said. There it is again. You can't maintain it forever. I'm not asking to live forever. I'm asking to live in my own home. Madison rubbed both hands over her face. This is why we didn't tell you. You react emotionally to everything. I found instructions explaining how to remove your mother's belongings from my house. Dad, tell me the unemotional reaction. She looked away. Camden's voice became softer. Tom, eventually Madison will inherit the property anyway. We're simply trying to make decisions while everyone can benefit. Everyone. I knew exactly who he meant. You've calculated the value, haven't you? He did not answer. Madison did. The realtor estimated around $620,000. The room became completely silent. My daughter had invited a realtor to estimate the value of my home. I looked at her. When? Dad, it was only an estimate. When? Last month. Did they enter the house? Number. Camden answered too quickly. Madison turned toward him. You said they only drove past. He gave her a reassuring smile. They did, but something in her face changed. A small crack. The first one I had seen. I placed the folder on the counter. I'm not moving. No one said you had to move immediately, Madison replied. The schedule says December. It was an idea. The tour is already booked. She stared at me. How do you know that? I called Harbor Grove. Camden's jaw tightened. This has gone far enough. I almost laughed. You planned my relocation and sold my house in your imagination, but I'm the one going too far. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Why can't you trust me? The question stunned me. Because you lied. I was trying to avoid this exact scene. You created this scene. You never let me make my own decisions. This decision belongs to me. Camden stepped closer. Madison is under enough pressure. You need to leave. I looked at my daughter. I waited for her to object. She did not. So I picked up the empty lantern box. At the door, Madison finally spoke. Are you still coming Saturday? I turned around. You removed me from the family table. Her face went pale. The seating arrangement wasn't final. You told the coordinator to warn the staff if I became emotional. Camden's eyes shifted toward her. She had not told him. I knew that part. Dad, please. I opened the door. You wanted me to leave. I meant the apartment. I know exactly what you meant. I walked away before either of them could see my hands shaking. I drove without knowing where I was going. Eventually, I found myself outside the old Columbus Fire Department garage where I had worked most of my adult life. The building had been renovated since my retirement. New doors, new security cameras. The faded sign I used to complain about had finally been replaced. My former coworker, Luis Mendoza, spotted my truck and came outside. Luis was 70 and still worked 2 days a week because, according to him, retirement was invented by people who hated coffee and gossip. He leaned through my open window. You look terrible. Good morning to you too. Come inside. I'm not supposed to be here. You trained half the people in that building. They'll survive. We sat in the break room drinking coffee from paper cups. I told him everything. Luis did not interrupt. When I finished, he stared at the vending machine for a long time. Then he said, do you want me to tell you what makes you feel better or what I actually think? What you actually think. Your daughter is scared. Of me. Of losing the life she thinks she's getting. I looked down at my coffee. Luis continued. Camden looks like a doorway into a world she wants. The wedding, the clothes, the photographs, the family with money. She knows something is wrong, but admitting it would mean admitting she built her future around the wrong man. That doesn't explain what she did. No. It explains why she keeps doing it. I thought about Madison's apartment. The white furniture. The engagement photograph. The way she had asked why I could not trust her while standing beside a folder planning to remove me from my home. Luis tapped the table. What do you know about his parents? Almost nothing. Find out. I'm not interested in playing detective. You don't need to be a detective. Start with the truth they already gave you. The Shaws supposedly lived in Vancouver and London, but their names were on the wedding seating chart. The retirement brochure listed Camden's mother as the referral contact. I had noticed it earlier without understanding its significance. Recommended by Marlene Shaw, family transition consultant. I searched the company name on my phone. Her professional profile appeared immediately. Marlene Shaw, Senior Relocation Advisor. Dublin, Ohio. Not Vancouver. Not London. Dublin was 20 minutes away. Her profile photograph showed a woman with carefully styled blonde hair, pearl earrings, and a smile that made me feel cold. I knew that face. Not well. Not immediately, but I had seen her before. I enlarged the photograph. The room seemed to tilt. 9 years earlier, after Diane's knee replacement, she had spent 11 days recovering at Willowbrook Rehabilitation Center. She was supposed to come home on a Tuesday. On Sunday night, a nurse called to say Diane had become confused. By Monday morning, she was in intensive care with a severe medication reaction. She died 2 days later. The facility claimed Diane had experienced an unpredictable complication. Several staff members gave conflicting explanations. One nurse said Diane had received the wrong medication. Another later withdrew that statement. Records went missing. Timelines changed. Every conversation ended with an administrator assuring me they were conducting an internal review. That administrator had been named Marlene Denton. I had forgotten her face. Grief does strange things to memory. Some moments remain painfully clear. Others become fog. I remembered Marlene's pearl earrings. I remembered her folded hands. I remembered the way she sat across from me and said, "Mr. Bennett, focusing on blame will not bring your wife back." Now she was Marlene Shaw, Camden's mother, the woman Madison claimed I had never met. My phone nearly slipped from my hand. Luis leaned closer. "What is it?" I showed him the screen. He watched my face. "You know her. She ran the place where Diane died." Neither of us spoke for several seconds. My first instinct was to call Madison. My second was to drive directly to Marlene's house. Instead, I called Beth. Beth was Diane's older sister. She answered with music playing in the background. "Tom, is everything okay? Do you remember Marlene Denton?" The music stopped. "What happened? Just answer me." "Of course I remember her. Look up Marlene Shaw in Dublin." Beth was quiet while she searched. Then I heard her inhale sharply. "Oh my God. It's her. That's Camden's mother." "Yes." "Does Madison know?" "I don't know." But even as I said it, I remembered Madison's message. "Do not ask questions about his family." Camden's parents felt unsafe around me. They had not been avoiding me because I was judgmental. They had been avoiding me because Marlene knew I would recognize her. Beth spoke carefully. "Tom, you need to talk to Madison before Saturday." I tried. "Try again." She helped arrange a retirement home. Beth went silent. I told her about the folder, the realtor, the seating chart. When I finished, she said something I had not allowed myself to think. "You may have to let the wedding fail. She's my daughter." "I know. I promised Diane I would protect her. Protecting her does not mean helping her walk into a fire." I closed my eyes. The old garage noises surrounded me. Metal tools, engines, men calling across the service bay. For nearly 4 decades, I had fixed machines designed to run toward emergencies. But I had no idea how to rescue someone who insisted the flames were warm. That afternoon, I opened social media. I was not good at it. My profile picture was 7 years old, and the last thing I had posted was a photograph of a tomato shaped like Richard Nixon. Madison, however, documented everything. Engagement dinners, dress fittings, bridal showers, cake tastings, a weekend in Nashville. A caption beneath one photograph read, "Building a life surrounded by people who protect our peace." Camden's arm was around her. Victor and Marlene stood on either side. The photograph had been posted 6 weeks earlier. They were in Columbus, not overseas, not unavailable. They had met Madison many times. I scrolled backward. There they were at a vineyard in September, at a restaurant in Cincinnati, at Madison's apartment holding paint samples, at a Sunday brunch captioned, "Future Family." My daughter had created an entire public history with them while telling me they were strangers who valued privacy. In one photograph, Madison wore Diane's pearl necklace. I had given it to her for the wedding. Marlene's hand rested on Madison's shoulder. The woman who told me blame would not bring Diane back was wearing my wife's pearls in a photograph with my daughter. I enlarged the image. Marlene was not wearing the necklace. Madison was. But the sight still felt like theft. Not of jewelry, of memory. I noticed a comment beneath the post from Marlene. "Diane would be proud of the woman we're helping you become." My stomach turned. She had used my wife's name. Madison had replied with a heart. I called her. This time she answered. "What? Does Camden's mother know how your mother died?" Silence. "Madison, this is not a conversation for the phone. Then come to the house." "I can't." "Does she know?" Camden's voice sounded in the background. "Who are you talking to?" Madison lowered her voice. "Dad, please don't start. Marlene Shaw is Marlene Denton." Another silence. This one told me everything. You knew. I found out recently. How recently? Dad, how long? 2 months. I sat down slowly. 2 months. For 2 months, my daughter had known. She had worn Diane's pearls while posing beside Marlene. She had allowed Marlene to write that Diane would be proud. You knew she ran Willowbrook. Camden explained what happened. He explained what happened to my wife. He said his mother wasn't responsible. I never said she personally gave Diane the wrong medicine. You've blamed that place for 9 years. Because they lied to us. Maybe they were afraid of being blamed for something they couldn't control. The sentence sounded rehearsed. Marlene told you that. She showed me documents. What documents? I don't know. Reports. You don't know. I didn't study them, but you believed her. Madison exhaled angrily. She was kind to me. So was I. That isn't fair. No, Madison. It isn't. Camden took the phone. Tom, this needs to stop. Give the phone back to my daughter. You are dragging an old tragedy into our wedding. Your mother is part of that tragedy. My mother managed hundreds of employees. She cannot be personally responsible for every mistake made in a facility. Then why did she hide her identity? She didn't. You told me she lived in Vancouver. Our family travels. She lives in Dublin. Tom, and why did you tell Madison not to tell me? His voice lost some of its patience. Because this is exactly what we knew you would do. Ask questions. Make everything about your grief. I gripped the phone. Behind his words, I heard Marlene from 9 years earlier. Focusing on blame will not bring your wife back. Different voice. Same strategy. Turn the question into cruelty. Turn pain into instability. Make the wounded person apologize for bleeding. Give Madison the phone. She doesn't need more pressure. She is 31 years old, and yet you still treat her like a child. Then stop speaking for her. He ended the call. A minute later, Madison sent a message. Do not contact us again until Saturday. If you cause a scene, security will remove you. Security. At my daughter's wedding, I stared at the message. Then I opened the wedding invoice folder on my desk. The final catering payment was due Friday morning. $8,400. The videographer still required a balance. The venue had added a security deposit. Madison expected me to pay all 3. I called the catering manager. I need to make sure no additional charges are placed on my card. He asked whether I wanted to cancel the event. No. I am only ending my financial authorization. Have you discussed this with the bride? Number. There was a pause. Understood. I called the venue and videographer next. I did not cancel anything. I did not demand refunds. I simply told them the truth. I had paid the amount I promised. I would not pay more. Then I went into the garage. The arch stood ready. Madison had asked the rental company to collect it Friday morning. I wrapped the cedar post carefully. I attached the lantern ledges. I loaded every piece into my truck myself. For an hour, I considered refusing to deliver it, but the arch was not leverage. It was a gift I had made before I knew what my daughter had done. My love for her had been real when I built it. Her betrayal did not make that love false. So I delivered the arch to the venue. I left it exactly where the coordinator requested. Then I drove away without asking whether I would ever see it used. That evening, I opened the box from Diane's final months. It had been stored in the back of my bedroom closet beneath 2 folded quilts. I had not touched it in years. The cardboard smelled faintly of dust and lavender because Diane used to place dried lavender packets inside every closet. There were hospital bracelets, medication lists, a pair of reading glasses, receipts, sympathy cards, a notebook where I had written down every conversation during her final week because I was afraid I would forget something important. Halfway through the box, I found a staff photograph from Willowbrook's annual family picnic. Diane sat in a wheelchair near the front. She was smiling. Behind her stood several employees. Marlene Denton was at the center. Beside Marlene was a teenage boy wearing a volunteer badge. Camden, younger, thinner, but unmistakably Camden. He had been there. The man marrying my daughter had walked the same halls where Diane spent her last days. I turned the photograph over. Diane had written, "Family picnic. Camden D. helped me call Tom when the desk said the phone was unavailable. Nice kid." For a moment, I could not breathe. Diane had met Camden. She had called him nice. He had never mentioned it. I searched through the notebook. On the entry from her 9th day at Willowbrook, I had written, "Diane says young volunteer Camden brought her water. Marlene angry because family members keep asking about evening medication." The next page described Diane becoming confused. The page after that recorded the ambulance. I called Beth. She came over within 40 minutes. We sat at the kitchen table surrounded by papers and old photographs. Beth held the picnic picture under the light. That's him. Yes. He knew Diane. He was a teenager. He still knew who you were. I thought back to the first dinner. Camden remembering Diane's name after Madison mentioned it once. Maybe he had not remembered it from that conversation. Maybe he had remembered it from Willowbrook. Beth flipped through the notebook. Then she stopped. What is this? She pointed to a name. June Wallace. I remembered June as one of the evening aides who had been kind to Diane. She was also the staff member who first told me there might have been a medication error. 2 days later, she withdrew the statement and stopped returning my calls. Beth searched online. June now ran a small home care service outside Dayton. I called the number. A woman answered. When I said Diane Bennett's name, she became silent. I wondered whether your family would ever call again, she said. Do you remember Marlene Denton? I remember all of them. Camden. Another silence. Yes. I looked at Beth. What do you remember? June asked whether I was recording the call. Number. Good. She explained that Camden had volunteered at Willowbrook during high school. He answered phones, carried files, and helped his mother with administrative errands. The night Diane became ill, June had questioned the medication cup left in Diane's room. The label belonged to another resident. June reported it. Marlene told her to complete a corrected form before the morning shift arrived. What happened to the original form, I asked. I don't know. Why did you withdraw your statement? June's voice changed. Smaller. I was 26. I had 2 children and no savings. Marlene told me mistakes in documentation could end my career. She said if I kept making accusations, the facility would report me for mishandling medication. Did you mishandle it? Number. Then why were you afraid? Because she knew I couldn't afford not to be. The words sat heavily between us. June was not offering a courtroom confession. She did not claim Marlene had ordered anyone to harm Diane. She simply described a culture where protecting the institution mattered more than telling a grieving family the truth. Before ending the call, I asked about Camden. Did he know what happened? He was young. That wasn't my question. June sighed. He was in the office when his mother discussed the incident. My chest tightened. He heard, I can't say what he understood, but he knew your wife's name. He knew there had been a complaint, and he knew his mother was frightened of your family asking questions. Camden had recognized me from the beginning. Every handshake, every compliment, every carefully practiced smile. He had known. I asked June whether she would speak to Madison. She hesitated. I don't want trouble. I understand. But I'm tired of being afraid of a woman I haven't worked for in 9 years. Does that mean yes? It means I'll tell your daughter exactly what I told you. After the call ended, Beth studied me across the table. What are you going to do? I looked at the clock. The rehearsal dinner began in less than 24 hours. I'm going to attend the dinner. Madison told you not to. She also told a retirement community I was losing my memory. Beth nodded slowly. Do you want me there? Yes. Do you want June there? I thought about it. Then I shook my head. I don't want to ambush Madison with a stranger. What do you want? I want her to hear the truth before she says those vows. And if she refuses, I looked at the photograph of my wife. Then I will finally stop rescuing her from the consequences. Friday evening, the private dining room at the Hawthorne Club looked exactly like the photographs Madison had sent me. Tall windows overlooked the Scioto River. Candles reflected against polished glassware. White roses and eucalyptus ran along the tables. A large sign near the entrance read, "The night before, forever." I arrived at 6:12. The dinner began at 6:30. A young employee standing beside the entrance glanced at a tablet. Name? Thomas Bennett. Her smile disappeared. Please wait here. A security guard approached. He was young enough to be my son. Mr. Bennett, we were told you might come. That is usually how invitations work. I'm sorry, sir. The bride has requested that you not enter. Several guests were walking behind me. They slowed as they heard the conversation. I saw Beth approaching from the parking lot. The security guard lowered his voice. I don't want to embarrass you. You aren't embarrassing me. Madison appeared in the doorway. She wore a cream-colored dress and Diane's pearl necklace. For one brief second, I forgot the seating chart, the retirement folder, and every lie. I saw my little girl. Then Camden stepped beside her. Dad, Madison said, why are you doing this? I came to speak to you. I told you not to come. You told Harbor Grove I was losing my memory. Her eyes moved toward the guest behind me. Not here. You chose here. Camden placed one hand against the doorframe. You need to leave. I'll leave after Madison answers one question. She looked exhausted. What? Did you know Camden met your mother? The color drained from her face. Camden remained still. Madison turned toward him. What is he talking about? I held up the photograph. He volunteered at Willowbrook. Madison looked at Camden. Is that true? Camden's expression did not change. I was 15. You told me you had never heard of her mother until we met. I didn't remember every resident. I turned the photograph around. Diane remembered you. Madison stared at her mother's handwriting. Camden reached for the picture. I pulled it back. You knew who I was the first night you entered my home. That's ridiculous. Then why did your mother hide her name? A voice sounded from inside the dining room. Because we knew you were unstable. Marlene Shaw stepped forward. She wore a dark blue dress, pearl earrings, and the same calm expression she had worn across the conference table 9 years earlier. The sight of her brought back the smell of hospital disinfectant, the buzzing fluorescent light, the paper cup of water someone had placed in front of me while explaining that my wife was dead. Marlene looked at Madison. This is exactly what we tried to protect you from. I almost admired the speed of it. No apology. No surprise. Immediate control. Madison looked between us. You knew my father. Marlene sighed. Technically, his wife was briefly a resident at a facility I managed. My mother, yes, and you never told me. We didn't want an old misunderstanding to damage your relationship. I spoke quietly. My wife died. Marlene's expression tightened. After a medical complication. After she received medication with another patient's name. That was never proven. Because the original form disappeared. A murmur moved through the entrance. More guests had gathered. Madison looked mortified. Everyone, please go inside. No one moved. Camden stepped closer to her. Baby, this is what he wants. He wants an audience. I looked at my daughter. I asked to speak privately yesterday. You broke into my apartment. You gave me a key. You went through my things. My name was printed on the folder. Marlene shook her head sadly. Tom, you need help. There it was. Not anger. Not denial. Concern. The most effective weapon they had. Make me look confused. Make me look unstable. Make everyone believe cruelty was compassion. I reached into my jacket and removed the transition plan. Did I imagine this? Madison's maid of honor, Chloe, leaned closer. What is that? Camden's voice sharpened. Nothing relevant. I handed the pages to Madison. She did not take them. You already saw those. The guests haven't. Her eyes widened. Dad, don't. I lowered the pages. I had not come to humiliate her. Even then, after everything I did, not want to destroy my daughter in front of the people she loved. So I said, come outside with me for 5 minutes. Camden answered for her. Number. Madison turned toward him. I can speak to my father. Not while he's behaving this way. Something shifted in her expression. You don't decide that. He softened his voice immediately. I'm protecting you. From a conversation, from manipulation. I saw Madison look at his hand resting against her back. For months, she had mistaken control for protection. Maybe for the first time, she felt the difference. She walked outside with me. Beth followed but remained several feet away. Camden and his parents stayed near the door. I handed Madison the photograph. She read her mother's handwriting. Camden helped her call you. Yes. He said he didn't remember her. He remembered enough to hide his parents. Tears filled her eyes. Why would he do this? Because his family knew I would ask questions. About Mom, about your mother, about my house, about why they were planning my life without me. She shook her head. The retirement plan was only an option. Did you tell Harbor Grove I was having memory problems? She looked down. Did you? I said you sometimes forget things. Everyone sometimes forgets things. They asked why you might resist, and you gave them a reason. I was trying to make the conversation easier. For whom? She did not answer. I took out my phone. June Wallace is willing to speak with you. Who? The aide who tried to tell us what happened to your mother. Madison looked toward Marlene. Marlene was watching us through the glass doors. She works with you, Madison asked. Number. Is she trying to sue them? Number. Then why now? Because she learned you were marrying Marlene's son. Madison covered her mouth. Behind us, the dining room door opened. Camden walked outside. That's enough. Madison turned toward him. Did you know the medication form disappeared? He looked at me. What did you tell her? I asked you a question, Madison said. His expression changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. The tenderness disappeared. You are not qualified to understand what happened. Were you there? I was a teenager. Were you there? Yes. And you never told me. It had nothing to do with us. My mother died. It was 9 years ago. Madison flinched. Camden realized his mistake. He reached for her. That came out wrong. She stepped away. You told me my father was obsessed with a random facility. He is. You knew it wasn't random. I knew there was history. You knew my mother. I saw hundreds of residents. She wrote your name. Madison held up the photograph. For the first time, Camden had no answer ready. The guests inside had gone silent. Marlene came outside. This conversation is becoming inappropriate. Madison looked at her. You wrote online that my mother would be proud of me. Marlene's face remained calm. I was supporting you. You knew her. Briefly. You watched me wear her necklace. I don't understand what that has to do with anything. Madison stared at her. Then she whispered, you let me call you family. Marlene's patience finally cracked. We have treated you better than your father has treated anyone this week. My daughter looked at me, then at the security guard, then at the dining room from which I had been excluded. A terrible understanding moved across her face. You told me he would ruin everything. Camden touched her arm. He is ruining it. No, Madison said quietly. He's standing outside. Camden frowned. What? You put him outside? You asked me to handle him. I asked you to help me reduce tension. And I did. By removing my father from our dinner, you agreed. Madison closed her eyes. That was the hardest truth. She had agreed. Camden had manipulated her, but he had not acted alone. When she opened her eyes again, she looked at me. Did you stop the final payments? Yes. Camden stared at me. What payments? The remaining charges on my card. Madison looked wounded. You promised. I paid $29,000. I built the arch. I delivered it this morning. The caterer called me, she said. We owe $8,000 by tonight. I know. You're punishing me. Number. What do you call it? A boundary. Camden laughed bitterly. There it is. The controlling father finally admits what this is about. I looked at him. You arranged to sell a house you don't own. We discussed a future possibility. You had it valued. That is not illegal. I didn't say it was illegal. His face tightened. I continued. Something can be selfish without being illegal. Something can be cruel without becoming a court case. Families destroy each other every day without breaking a single law. No one spoke. I looked at Madison. I will not pay to attend a celebration where I am treated like a threat. I will not fund people who are planning to remove me from my home. And I will not pretend your mother's death is an inconvenient story because it makes Camden's family uncomfortable. Madison began to cry. Camden wrapped one arm around her. She immediately pulled away. Don't. Madison, don't touch me right now. His face darkened. We have one night before the wedding. You cannot fall apart because your father brought up old accusations. Old accusations. She held up the photograph. This is my mother. I know. The way he said it made her stop. Not I understand. Not I'm sorry. I know. Madison stared at him. Then she asked, when did you realize who my father was? Camden did not answer. She repeated the question. When? His mother spoke first. This is unnecessary. Madison did not look away from him. When did you know? Camden's jaw moved. The first time I saw his last name. The world seemed to become still. Madison stepped backward. The first time, I wanted to tell you, but you didn't. I knew your father would use it against us. You met him in his own house. You drank his bourbon. You asked him to help pay for our wedding. Madison, you let him call you family. Camden lowered his voice. Think carefully about what you're doing. She laughed through her tears. That sounds like a threat. It is advice. No. It's how you talk when I stop obeying. Several guests looked away. Camden realized everyone had heard. His face flushed. Marlene stepped forward. Madison, you're overwhelmed. Come inside. We'll finish dinner, get some sleep, and speak in the morning. Madison looked at her future mother-in-law. You planned to put my father in Harbor Grove. We offered guidance. You wrote the transition notes. I helped organize them. You told me to describe his grief as memory problems. I told you facilities respond more quickly when families explain the urgency. That sentence destroyed whatever trust remained. Madison's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marlene continued, still believing she could regain control. Your father is alone in a large house. You and Camden need a home. Responsible families plan ahead. My father is 63. He is not getting younger. Neither are you. Marlene's expression hardened. Madison removed Diane's pearl necklace. Her fingers trembled as she placed it in my hand. Keep this for me. I closed my fingers around it. Madison, I can't wear it tomorrow. Camden stared at her. What does that mean? She looked at him. It means there might not be a tomorrow. The rehearsal dinner never officially began. Some guests stayed inside, uncertain whether leaving would seem rude. Others gathered near the entrance pretending to check their phones. The candles continued burning beside untouched plates. A server carried out a tray of appetizers, saw the crowd, and quietly turned around. Camden followed Madison into the dining room. I remained outside with Beth. Through the glass, I saw him speaking rapidly. Madison stood still. Marlene moved beside her. Victor Shaw, who had remained almost completely silent, finally approached me. He was a tall man with gray hair and an expensive coat. "You've made your point," he said. "I wasn't speaking to you. You should leave before you cause more damage. More damage than planning to take my home." Victor sighed. "No one was taking anything." "Then why did your son know its value?" "Camden is in property development. He knew the remaining balance on my mortgage." Victor's face revealed more than his words. I had not told anyone the house still carried a small mortgage from the repairs after a water leak. Madison knew. Apparently Camden knew too. How much did he expect, I asked. Victor's eyes narrowed. This is becoming absurd. How much money did he expect from the sale? You should ask your daughter. I am asking the man whose wife prepared the plan. Victor stepped closer. Your daughter wanted a better life. Better than what? He glanced at my old truck, my department store jacket, the brace visible beneath my pants. He did not need to answer. Then he said Madison was embarrassed by you long before she met Camden. The word struck exactly where he intended. I felt my hands tighten. Beth stepped forward. Walk away, Victor. He looked at her. And you are someone who knows what your wife did when Diane died. His face changed. Only slightly. But enough. Beth continued. You spent months making Tom feel too poor, too tired, and too grieving to ask questions. Now you're trying to do the same thing with his house. That is a serious accusation. No, Beth replied. It's an observation. Victor walked away. My phone rang. June Wallace. I saw your missed call, she said. I'm at the rehearsal dinner. Is Madison there? Yes. Does she know? She knows some of it. June was silent. Then she said, put me on speaker. I entered the dining room. Madison was sitting at the table with her face in her hands. Camden stood beside the window. Marlene was speaking quietly to the wedding coordinator. I placed my phone on the table. Madison June Wallace wants to speak with you. Marlene turned around. Her composure vanished for the first time. Absolutely not. Madison looked up. Why? This woman was terminated for misconduct. June's voice came through the speaker. I resigned Marlene. Everyone went quiet. Marlene stared at the phone. June continued. You told people I was terminated because you knew I was too frightened to correct you. Marlene reached toward the phone. Madison stopped her. Let her speak. June told the story simply. No dramatic accusations. No claims she could not support. She explained the mislabeled medication cup, the missing original report, the meeting in which Marlene warned her that accusations could destroy her career. She explained that Camden had been in the administrative office that week. When she finished, Madison asked, did my mother know something was wrong? June's voice softened. She knew the pills looked different. Was she afraid? A pause followed. She asked me to call your father. Madison covered her mouth. I told her I would. Did you? Yes. But the front desk said Marlene had instructed staff not to contact families until the nurse completed an evaluation. Marlene interrupted. That was standard procedure. June answered calmly. Diane asked for her husband. You were not authorized to create panic. She died. She had multiple health conditions. She was recovering from knee surgery. Marlene's voice rose. You don't understand the pressures involved in managing a facility. June's reply was quiet. That was always your excuse. The line disconnected. No one moved. Madison looked at Marlene as though seeing her for the first time. Then she turned toward Camden. You knew she was afraid of my father. My mother was protecting the family. From him asking why his wife died, from being blamed forever. Madison shook her head. You sound exactly like her. Camden's expression hardened again. We are not throwing away our wedding over a phone call from a disgruntled former employee. Our wedding. Yes, our wedding. The one we spent a year planning. The one with 200 guests arriving tomorrow. The one you claim mattered more than anything. Madison stared at him. I said our marriage mattered. This is our marriage. No. This is a party. He pointed toward me. And he has poisoned it. Madison stood. My father did not hide your family from me. He hid his obsession. He told me Willowbrook hurt him. I chose not to listen. Camden moved closer. Because you knew he was irrational. No. Because listening would have made my life inconvenient. The honesty of that sentence changed the room. Madison looked at me. I wanted the wedding more than I wanted the truth. I felt something break inside me, but something else began to heal. Not because she apologized, because she finally stopped lying. Camden lowered his voice. We can still fix this. How? We send him home. We continue tomorrow. After the honeymoon, we handle the rest privately. The rest? The house, the retirement plan, whatever makes him feel secure. Madison stared at him. You still think we're getting his house? Eventually, you will inherit it. So that makes it ours. It makes planning reasonable. Number. Madison. Number. She removed her engagement ring. Camden's face went blank. She placed it on the white tablecloth between them. The tiny sound it made seemed louder than shouting. I'm not marrying you tomorrow. Marlene inhaled sharply. Victor swore under his breath. Camden stared at the ring. Then he looked at Madison with an expression I had never seen before. Cold. You'll regret this. Maybe. You'll lose the deposits. I know. People will talk. I know. You'll humiliate yourself. Madison wiped her cheeks. I've been humiliating myself for months. I just called it love. Camden looked at me. I expected anger. Instead, he smiled. You think you won. I shook my head. My daughter just lost the future she believed she had. No father wins that night. He picked up the ring and walked out. His parents followed. Marlene stopped beside me. You have no idea what you've done. I told the truth. You destroyed your daughter's wedding. Number. I looked toward Madison. The lies did. Marlene left without answering. The dining room remained silent. Then, Chloe, Madison's maid of honor, walked over and hugged her. Beth joined them. A few guests quietly collected their belongings. Others approached Madison one at a time. No one congratulated her. No one knew whether to call her brave. They simply stayed near her so she would not be alone. I stood several feet away. I did not rush forward. I did not tell her everything would be fine. Some moments are too painful for easy promises. Eventually, Madison looked at me. Dad. Yes? Will you take me home? Saturday morning arrived beneath a pale gray sky. Freezing rain tapped against my bedroom window. At 6:40, I heard movement downstairs. Madison had slept in her childhood bedroom. When I entered the kitchen, she was sitting at the table wearing one of Diane's old Ohio State sweatshirts. Her makeup from the previous night had left faint shadows beneath her eyes. She held a cup of coffee but had not drunk it. The florist keeps calling, she said. Do you want me to answer? Number. A moment later, her phone rang again. She declined the call. The venue needs an official cancellation. I sat across from her. Then call them. She looked at me. I don't know what to say. The truth. What truth? That the wedding is canceled. They'll ask why. You don't owe everyone the whole story. She nodded. Then she made the call. Her voice shook when she said the words. The wedding will not take place today. Afterward, she called the photographer, the caterer, the hairstylist, the transportation company. Each conversation made the cancellation more real. Some vendors were kind. Others immediately discussed balances and penalties. Real life rarely pauses for heartbreak. By 9 o'clock, messages flooded her phone. Relatives asking whether the rumors were true. Friends demanding explanations. Camden's business associates asking whether the wedding had been postponed. One message came from Marlene. You are making an irreversible mistake because of a grieving man's delusions. Madison read it twice, then blocked her. Camden sent 23 messages. Some apologized. Some blamed me. Some reminded her how much money they would lose. The final message said, no one else will tolerate the chaos your father brings into your life. Madison showed it to me. For months, those words would have frightened her. Now she stared at them with something close to disgust. He really thinks loving me means tolerating me. I said nothing. She deleted the message. At 10:30, we drove to the venue to collect personal belongings. The wooden arch stood at the front of the empty ceremony space. White fabric moved gently in the draft from an open service door. The florist had already attached climbing roses. Rows of empty chairs faced it. Madison stopped in the aisle. For a long time, neither of us spoke. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, she whispered. I know. I imagined walking down here with you. I did too. She began crying. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell her it was all right. It was not. I wanted to tell her the pain would disappear. It would not. So I gave her the truth. I love you, but I am deeply hurt. She nodded. I know. You lied to me. I know. You allowed people to describe me as confused because it made your plans easier. I know. You helped them plan to remove your mother's belongings from our home. Her shoulders shook. I know. I looked toward the arch. I can forgive you someday. But forgiveness is not the same as pretending this never happened. She wiped her face. What do I do? You start by accepting that there is no quick repair. She looked frightened. Are you done with me? Number. The answer came immediately. I am your father. She closed her eyes. I continued. But I am done sacrificing my dignity to prove I love you. We stood beneath the arch together, not as a bride and her father, as two people surrounded by the remains of a future that should never have been built. Before leaving, Madison asked what I planned to do with the arch. I don't know. Don't destroy it. I wasn't planning to. Maybe someone else can use it. I looked at the roses. That sounds right. The venue coordinator later connected me with a local nonprofit that organized small weddings for couples facing serious illness or financial hardship. 2 months later, another father walked his daughter beneath that arch in a community garden. I did not attend, but the coordinator sent me a photograph. For the first time, the arch represented something honest. Madison stayed with me for 6 days. On the 7th morning, she placed a stack of invoices on the kitchen table. Cancellation fees, unpaid balances, a hotel suite that could not be refunded, customized gifts, altered dresses. Together, the bills totaled more than $21,000. She looked exhausted. I can pay some of it. How much? About $6,000. I waited. She folded her hands. I thought maybe you could lend me the rest. There it was. The old pattern. Madison hurt. I rescued her. Madison made a mistake. I absorbed the cost. For years, I had called that love. I poured more coffee and sat across from her. Number. She lowered her eyes. I'll repay you. Number. You have the savings. That is not the point. What is the point? You made financial commitments after I told you I had reached my limit. Her face tightened. I didn't know the wedding would be canceled. You knew Camden's mother had been involved with Willowbrook. She flinched. I know. You knew they were lying to me. I know. You knew about the retirement plan. I thought it would help eventually. And you continued spending. Tears returned to her eyes. So you're gonna let me drown? No. I'm going to help you swim. What does that mean? I will sit with you and make a budget. I'll help you sell anything that can be sold. I'll help you call the vendors and ask for payment plans. You can stay here for 3 months while you rebuild your savings. But you won't pay. Number. She looked angry. That was familiar? For a moment, she looked like the Madison who had accused me of ruining her wedding. Then the anger weakened. You really mean it? Yes. She cried quietly. I let her. Boundaries are difficult partly because they hurt people we love. But removing the pain would have returned us to the same place. After a few minutes, she said, Camden always told me you would eventually pay for everything. I felt sick. What else did he say? That you wanted to feel needed. Maybe he was right about that. She looked surprised. I continued. After your mother died, taking care of you gave me a reason to get up. Every time you needed something, I felt useful. I took advantage of that. Sometimes. I'm sorry. I know. She moved into a small apartment near her office 8 weeks later. She sold the designer wedding dress online. She returned unopened gifts. She took freelance marketing work in the evenings. For the first time in her adult life, she handled a financial crisis without placing it in my lap. I wanted to help more than I did. Some nights I picked up my phone and almost offered money. Then I remembered the retirement folder. Love without boundaries had not protected Madison. It had made her vulnerable to anyone who promised her comfort without consequences. I did not begin a public campaign against Camden's family. I did not post accusations online. I did not call television stations or spend my days imagining courtroom speeches. I sent copies of Diane's records to June. I gave Beth access to the old box. Then, I stopped chasing answers that had consumed 9 years of my life. What happened next came from other people. Chloe told Madison she had heard Camden joke about my house during the bachelor party. According to him, the Worthington property would finance a larger home for him and Madison within 2 years. A wedding guest who worked with Victor revealed that the Shaws had discussed my supposed move to Harbor Grove as though it were already settled. The wedding coordinator admitted Marlene had written most of the transition notes. Harbor Grove removed Marlene from its referral network after learning she had submitted concerns about my memory without speaking to me. None of those events became dramatic headlines. There were no police cars outside anyone's home. No reporters waited on the sidewalk. Instead, the Shaws experienced something they had spent years avoiding. People stopped trusting them. Friends asked uncomfortable questions. Business contacts became cautious. Families considering Marlene's relocation services wanted to know whether she pressured older adults. Camden lost 2 renovation clients after they learned he had discussed an anticipated property transfer that did not belong to him. Actions do not always return as spectacular punishment. Sometimes they return as doors quietly closing. Camden continued contacting Madison. He sent flowers. He wrote letters. He apologized for hiding Willowbrook, but never for planning to use my house. In every apology, he described himself as someone whose good intentions had been misunderstood. Madison met him once at a coffee shop. She told me afterward, I wanted to see whether he had changed. Had he? He said he forgave me. I nearly laughed. For what? For humiliating his family. What did you say? I told him forgiveness wasn't his to offer. That was the first moment I believed she was truly coming back to herself. Madison and I began having Sunday dinner twice a month. Not every Sunday. That distinction mattered. Before the wedding, she had entered my house whenever she wanted expected dinner and left with containers of leftovers without asking whether I had plans. Now she called. She knocked. She sometimes brought groceries. The first few dinners were painfully polite. We discussed weather work and television shows neither of us cared about. Anything felt safer than discussing Camden or the wedding. One Sunday, she arrived with a small cardboard box. Inside were copies of photographs from her engagement year. She had removed the frames. I don't know what to do with these, she said. You don't have to decide today. She pulled out the vineyard photograph showing her between Victor and Marlene. I look happy. You probably were. That's what makes me feel stupid. Happiness isn't stupidity. I ignored everything. You wanted something to be true. She looked toward Diane's photograph. Mom would have seen through them. Probably. Do you think she'd hate me? Number. You answered quickly. Your mother was capable of being furious without stopping loving someone. Madison smiled faintly. That sounds like you. I learned from the best. She placed the photographs back in the box. Then she asked, why didn't you abandon me? The question caught me off guard. Because you're my daughter. That didn't stop me from abandoning you. I thought carefully before answering. You did not stop being my daughter when you hurt me, but being my daughter also does not give you unlimited permission to hurt me. She nodded. I'm learning that. So am I. Healing did not arrive as one beautiful conversation. It came unevenly. Madison became defensive when I asked questions about her finances. I became suspicious whenever she mentioned a new friend. Sometimes I used Camden's name when she had done nothing wrong. Sometimes she accused me of punishing her when I was merely protecting myself. We argued. We took breaks. We returned. She began seeing a counselor. I joined a widower's support group at a community center. For 9 years, I had insisted I was fine because other people needed me. At the group, I met men who understood the quiet humiliation of eating dinner alone while still setting out 2 plates by accident. I spoke about Diane. Not only how she died, how she lived. Her terrible singing, her obsession with rearranging furniture, the way she hid chocolate behind frozen vegetables because she knew I would never look there. For years, Willowbrook had become the final chapter of Diane's story. I had allowed the worst week of her life to overshadow the 32 years before it. Speaking about her helped me take those years back. In March, Madison came over while I was repairing the deck. She wore jeans and one of my old fire department sweatshirts. Need help, she asked. Do you know how to use a drill? You taught me. I taught you not to leave one in the rain. You ignored that lesson. She rolled her eyes. For 2 hours, we replaced damaged boards. It reminded me of when she was young and wanted to help with every project, even if her help doubled the time required. At lunch, we sat on the back steps. The flower beds were beginning to wake after winter. Madison looked toward the house. Are you really staying here? Yes, forever. No one stays anywhere forever. You know what I mean. I'm staying as long as the house still works for me. She nodded. I'm sorry I treated it like an inheritance instead of your home. I appreciated the specificity of the apology. Not, I'm sorry for everything. Not mistakes were made. She named what she had done. That hurt, I said. I know. Your mother is everywhere in this house. I know. But the house isn't a museum. I may change things. She looked surprised. Like what? I'm turning your old bedroom into an office. Her mouth dropped open. My room. You moved out 13 years ago. But it's my room. I stared at her. Then she began laughing. I heard it. Heard what? How ridiculous I sounded. I laughed too. It was the first easy laugh we had shared since the canceled wedding. Later that spring, I repainted her old room. I removed the posters she had left in the closet. I donated boxes of childhood clothes after asking which items she wanted. The house remained full of memories, but it became mine again. Not a waiting room for my daughter's inheritance. On what would have been Diane's 64th birthday, Madison and I drove to the cemetery. She brought yellow tulips. Diane had hated lilies because she said they smelled like funeral homes. We sat beside the stone. Madison touched her mother's name. "I wore your pearls beside the woman who lied to Dad," she whispered. "I'm sorry." The wind moved gently through the trees. I gave Madison time. Eventually, she looked at me. "Do you think Mom knew you would protect me?" I promised her. "Did protecting me include stopping my wedding?" "I didn't stop it. You came to the rehearsal dinner. To tell you the truth, you knew what might happen." "Yes." She looked back at the stone. "I used to think love meant making sure I never felt pain. I thought that too. What do you think now?" I considered the question. "Love means caring enough not to help someone destroy themselves." Madison wiped her eyes. "I hated you that night." "I know. Part of me wanted security to remove you." "I know that too." "How?" "You looked at me the same way you looked at me when I refused to buy you a pony." "I was 8. You held grudges early." She smiled. Then her expression became serious. "Thank you for coming anyway." I placed one hand on the grass beside Diane's stone. I was terrified. "You didn't look terrified. Age teaches you how to look calm while your entire life falls apart." Madison leaned against my shoulder. We sat there until the afternoon sun moved behind the trees. A year has passed since the wedding that never happened. I still live in the same house. The mortgage is nearly paid. The maple tree still drops thousands of leaves into my yard every October. My shoulder still predicts rain more accurately than the weather app. The wooden wedding arch is now used by the community nonprofit several times a year. They send me a photograph after every ceremony. Young couples, older couples. A military veteran who married his high school sweetheart after 40 years apart. A woman receiving cancer treatment who wanted her wedding in a garden rather than a hospital chapel. Every photograph reminds me that something made in love does not have to remain attached to betrayal. Madison is doing better. She received a promotion at work. She paid the last wedding balance herself. She has not dated seriously since Camden, though I do not ask more questions than she wants to answer. That is another boundary I am learning. Sometimes she still apologizes. Sometimes I tell her I remember. Both things can be true. Forgiveness does not erase memory. Trust does not return because someone says the right words. It returns through hundreds of small decisions. Calling when you say you will. Telling the truth when lying would be easier. Respecting a no without turning it into rejection. Seeing a parent as a person rather than a source of money, shelter, or rescue. For years, I believed my value as a father came from what I could provide. Money, repairs, advice, a spare bedroom, a signature, a house. People like Camden understood that weakness before I did. He knew that if he made Madison afraid enough, she would ask me to sacrifice more. He knew I had spent 9 years saying yes because no felt like abandonment. What he did not understand was that a person can learn. Even at 63, even after decades of confusing love with surrender. The greatest victory was not that Camden lost the wedding. It was not that Marlene's reputation suffered. It was not that my house remained mine. The greatest victory was that I finally stopped begging for a place in a family I had spent my life holding together. I did not need to earn my seat at my daughter's table. I did not need to finance my own humiliation. I did not need to accept lies simply because the person telling them was someone I loved. And Madison learned something too. A beautiful wedding cannot turn deception into devotion. An expensive ring cannot make control feel safe forever. A person who asks you to abandon everyone who questions him is not protecting your peace. He is protecting his access to you. I still love my daughter completely. That has never changed. But love without boundaries is not loyalty. It is permission. Permission to lie. Permission to take. Permission to return only when something is needed. The night I walked into that rehearsal dinner, I thought I was risking my relationship with Madison. In truth, our old relationship needed to end. The one where she demanded and I provided. Where she lied and I forgave before she apologized. Where I measured my worth by how much pain I could absorb without walking away. What replaced it is less comfortable, but it is honest. We are not a perfect father and daughter. We are two imperfect people learning that family should not require one person to disappear so everyone else can remain comfortable. So let me ask you this. If your child secretly planned to move you out of your home, lied about the family they were marrying into, and removed you from the wedding you helped pay for, would you still have attended the rehearsal dinner to expose the truth? Or would you have walked away and allowed them to discover the consequences alone? Tell me honestly in the comments, because some people believe I saved my daughter that night. Others believe I humiliated her when she was already trapped. And even now, I'm not sure which truth is harder to live with.